right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take, Sharp and Shapiro. Glad you could join us. We got Brian Feldman in the house. Going to talk a little bit about his bread and butter. We'll get to the Vegas Golden Knights here in just a few minutes. I do want to talk little UNLV hoops a little bit more. And a couple people in the media, again, making just some of the most outrageous, ridiculous comments. One member of the media today posed this question on the air, not even on social media. He said, the question was, would Rick Pitino accept an assistant coaching position at UNLV? Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, somebody went on the air today on another station and asked the question if Rick Pitino would be an assistant coach under Marvin Menzies. Can the buffoonery please just stop? Mike Romala from the Las Vegas Sun. Now, we've gotten into it a little bit on social media. He said he says a lot of things that I disagree with. Here's what he said about Marvin Menzies today, again, on the air on another station. He says, quote, I think he's doing a very good job in reference to Marvin Menzies, and he has it going in the right direction. So I reached out to Mike Romala on social media, and I said, how would you like to come in studio and debate that? Because I think it's just a completely ridiculous statement. That's just my opinion. I did a little Twitter poll. I said, what are the odds Mike Romala comes in? I think we've got like 60 votes on it so far, and 90% say no, there's no chance he's going to come in. Some people on social media are claiming that people at the Sun are getting paid to write favorable articles about UNLV. I don't know that. Allegedly, I don't know if that's true or not. Have no idea. So, guys, let me start by saying, how can you make a statement like that he's doing a pretty good job with 2,500 people in the stands in arguably one of the worst conferences in the country, in the middle of the conference in year 3, and after what happened last year with the top recruiting class in the Mountain West Conference, they lost their last 5 games in a row in conference, and they lost in the quarterfinals of the Mountain West Conference tournament. How can you say that he's doing a pretty good job and he has it going in the right direction? Guys, please.
It just sounds like something somebody would say that is being paid by UNLV.
Feldman, what do you think?
Brian, here's where I will say there might have a little merit. I've told you all the time that to me, what's indicative of a good coach is how they coach out of the halftime, how they come into the second half in sports that have a halftime. In the second half in games, UNLV has showed an improvement this year in the Mountain West Conference. Also, they've won more Mountain West Conference games this year than they have in a little bit of time. You're just asking me, how can someone say this? Do I agree that they're going in the right direction? I don't know what direction they're going in. I really don't. Some games, it's like anything. They play decently for stretches, but this team right now is, to me, it's still a team without an identity, and they have been for a while.
What was their identity last year?
They have been for a while. Their identity was Brandon McCoy last year was their identity, and what a bust that turned out to be.
Last good coach we had was Lon Kruger. His identity was good, tough-nosed defense and rebounding, and that's why he got us to a Sweet 16. Well, he didn't get me to a Sweet 16. He got UNLV to a Sweet 16.
Well, defense is one of the biggest issues, Brian. And you heard Steve Lavin talk about Chris Beard and how he is a defensive guru, a professor. And there's the oldest adage in sports: defense wins championships, and it's something we just haven't seen at UNLV in a long, long time.
Yeah,
since the Lon Kruger days.
I agree. The problem with what you said about the conference, you're not talking about how bad the conference is. And I think when you're going to talk about wins and losses, I'll give you an example. Dave Rice in year number 3, he was 10-8, and somebody put on social media, well, year 3, Rice was 10-8. Look at where Menzies is at. Well, guess what? There were 2 teams top 20 in the country. I believe it was San Diego State and New Mexico. In year 3 of Dave Rice, top 200 or top 25 in the country. Most of those other teams were lingering around 100, 120. Much better conference where Nevada Reno wasn't that bad. A lot of good teams back then in the conference. It is a complete 180 now. This is, again, I'll say it again, the Mountain West Conference is right there with Ivy League as one of the worst conferences in the country. One of the worst. So if you're going to brag about right now 9-6 in one of the worst conferences in the country, and you're wearing that UNLV jersey, then the bar is so low for this program, it is unbelievable. As far as going in the right direction. The team was better last year. You cannot tell me that the team last year wouldn't destroy the team this year, because I think they would. They had Brandon McCoy. They had a healthy Houston. They still had JoJo Sr., capable two-guard. You could argue that, he took a lot of bad shots, but still a capable two-guard.
Johnson was a good
And Johnson was a very good point guard. I was shocked to see where that team ended last year. So is it going in the right direction? I say absolutely hell no.
And they were one of the worst teams defensively in basketball last year, in all of basketball last year.
Terrible. And you know what? Marvin Menzies' teams are not very good defensively. offensively. They're just not. And you bring up the stat that 3-29 or 3-30 against top 100 teams. That is a very, very telling stat.
You also mentioned Dave Rice. Dave Rice only lost 2 games by 15 or more points in conference in his entire tenure here. Marvin Menzies has lost 6 games in 2.5 years.
Yeah,
by more than 15 points in conference.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point too. Who have they beaten this year, Bri? Who have they beaten? What is a good win?
Okay, a good win might have been New Mexico after New Mexico
173
beat Reno.
173 in the country.
Now again, it's a close loss, but San Diego State is definitely moving in the right direction. Dutcher has that team playing the best they are all year, getting ready for the conference tournament, and they lost to them by a point with a shot at the buzzer to beat them.
And they got blown out at San Diego State.
Do you think that if Hemsley plays that second half, that they don't lose that game by less than 10?
I think it would have been a double-digit win.
I think it would have been a different game, no question, JD. I mean, I'm not going to say they've had any really good quality wins, Brian, and this season is a huge disappointment considering how bad the conference is.
Absolutely.
But again, only saying, you said, why would you say in the right direction? Again, more conference wins regardless of how bad it is. I'm just giving you, I'm just telling you why you would say it. And they are winning the second half of basketball games.
I'll say this.
And other than that, I have no idea why you could say that. I don't.
They do have injuries. Justin's out. Dembele's out. They're very, very young. But my biggest problem is not the fact that the team is not doing that well on the court and the product isn't there and the attendance isn't there. It's the excuses that Marvin Menzies continues to make.
They're pathetic. And by the way, the racial epithets
whether
made
it's
him look
racism,
really bad.
That was bad.
That was crazy.
No, it was
because
really
you can't back that up.
Beyond ridiculous.
The timing, it's so obvious how self-serving that statement was. It's incredible.
Makes him look very foolish.
And let's be honest, when we were at his house over the summer, none of this should be a surprise based on the conversations that we had there.
I'm still reeling over the food. I won't say anything bad about that day.
The food was amazing. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. But why don't we take some phone calls on this?
Okay,
we got some people.
I just want to say one thing that's really important, guys, and this you have to take into account. At the beginning of this season, and I've said this before, if I would have come to the two of you and said, who is the one player, who is the Steph Curry of UNLV that they cannot lose to have any kind of success this year, before the season started, who would both of you have said? Be honest. Who would you have said?
Probably Houston.
I would
probably
said
Houston.
Okay, then. They lost him 4 games into the season. I'm just saying.
But you're saying before the season started.
Right.
Based on the first few weeks he played, he was not the best player on the floor.
Well, I don't understand. And the last thing I'll say before you take a caller is my biggest beef is you see this guy, Joel Ntambwe, that has potential to be a star in the Mountain West Conference, okay? How do you not recognize his talent until like 8 games into the season where the guy is barely playing?
I've said that on social.
We can't recognize it because we don't get to go to the practices.
I've said that since day one. I didn't understand why Amari Hardy didn't start. That makes the coaching staff look foolish. You know what I want? I want to hear from students. I want to hear from UNLV students right there. Wherever you are, I would love to hear from you. What do you think about 2,500 people in the Thomas and Mack? What do you think about this UNLV team? What do you think about the student turnout? The number to call, 257-5396, 702-257-5396. Let's go to Austin. Austin, thanks for calling in. How are you?
Hey, good. How you doing?
Doing good, Austin. What's on your mind?
Good. Well, yeah, so you see me on Twitter the last couple of days. And, I'm a graduate student at UNLV, and I did my undergrad at ASU, but I've been a big fan since I was in high school. And because they were good and they played good competition and they had good players. I think that's really one of the biggest things right now is, for I know you don't like the optimism from everybody else in the media. And that's what I love about your show is you're objective about it. And there has to come a point where we realize, hey, they're not living up to the hype. And if they really want to prove it, they got to start scheduling better opponents next year. Because
I agree.
When I was in high school, I mean, we had teams coming in town like Wisconsin and Louisville, and then we even got to start playing.
Austin, can I just say one thing? Sorry to interrupt. I'll let you finish, but that's one thing I always gave Dave Rice credit for. And you know what? I didn't give him a credit for a lot of things. I said he was a good father, good husband, good man. He cared about UNLV. He didn't make excuses after games. And you know what else I said? He had a great out-of-conference strength of schedule. That is something that Marvin Menzies is just completely disappointed the fan base on.
But is that his decision?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, Go ahead, Austin. I agree with you.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying too. And so for all of the people in the media that are saying, well, okay, they have to grow up. It's a process. They need to get better. Okay, so this year it's freshmen and sophomores. Next year it's going to be juniors and sophomores. So they got to put a couple people on the schedule to start proving, hey, we're making the progress. And we're going to show it to you. When I was in my undergrad at ASU, they had gotten nobody to their basketball games either, and they're a decent team in the Pac-12.
Right.
It wasn't until last year, I mean, they would even beat Arizona when they were number 2, 3 in the country, and the next game there'd be 7,000 people.
Yeah, and Austin, you brought up something where some people say, well, they need to grow up, and you know what I say to people like that? What's your excuse for last year?
Exactly. Well, because I mean, they had the best recruiting thing.
They had a McDonald's. Last year they had a McDonald's All-American in McCoy. You had the best JUCO player coming out in Houston, a healthy one. You had JoJo, who was a senior, who was a capable two guard. You can make the argument he was probably one of the top 10 two guards in the league. I don't think that would have been out of a realm. And then you also have,
Johnson.
He was a very, very successful point guard.
Wisconsin, Milwaukee, right?
Well, probably one of the fastest point guards in the country.
Austin, do you know that?
First true point guard.
Do you know that? Do you guys know that Johnson was third in the country in assists in his second year at Wisconsin, Milwaukee? Yeah, I mean that's talent.
These guys need to get more production. I mean,
yeah.
Especially more than 8th place in the Mountain West, and to lose 5 games straight. I mean, like you said, with the talent that they have, that's really been their biggest problem for a long time. So from a student perspective, I mean, even though I'm a graduate student, I've been a passionate fan since, high school. I mean, UNLV used to be so good, and I was so passionate, even as a non-student when I was at ASU, that we would drive up for the games when they play Oregon and Illinois and all those big non-conference opponents because that's something to be excited about. And I mean, I used to go with dozens of friends that would be excited that aren't even sports fans. And I was talking to one the other day, and I said, man, I'm really frustrated how things are going. He's like, that ship hasn't sailed for you yet? I mean, they're just despondent. Nobody cares anymore because there's nothing to watch.
Hey, Austin, were you there for James Harden or not?
No, I wasn't. I was there 2013 to 2016.
Oh, okay.
He was struggling during the Dave Rice years.
I'm surprised by when at the media day, Menzies was really talking up Robotham because he's a local guy. He went to Akron. He came back here. Robotham is not. I don't even think he's a D1 talent at this point. He's
a Mountain West talent considering the Mountain West this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he makes threes sometimes, and when he gets hot from three, he's fine. Besides that, he's not very quick. He doesn't penetrate very well. He doesn't play great defense. Why is Menzies not promoting the fact that this Vegas high school student came back to play at UNLV and trying to push it out into the open to increase attendance in some capacity? Nothing is happening with that. I don't understand that. Why even bring in this
marketing just non-existent?
Yeah, why even bring in this transfer if you're not going to try to leverage him to get people into the seats?
Exactly. Well, they got to start doing more leveraging with the scheduling too. Because I mean, the first game I ever went to, which really got me hooked on UNLV basketball, was my sophomore year of high school, and that's when they played Wisconsin. And that was a good game because the crowd was there, everybody's into it. It was a good game, and they won. And I mean, they don't even need to win these big games. Even going to a game where they compete against these top schools will go a long way to getting people there because they'll say, "Hey, that was fun." I was hoping when they played Reno here that they would at least compete so that people would see, hey, you know what? They're making progress, and that was a good time. I'm going to go back. But they go out and have performances like they did, and what's anybody's incentive to go back after that? Like,
I agree. Austin, Brian Feldman has a question for you, but before we get to Brian Feldman, why are so many idiots on my Twitter page? Can you please explain that? Why are there so many just morons? Why does Mike Ramala say that he thinks things are going in a great direction and he's doing a good job? Well, the guy, we all know the guy's not going to come in studio and he's not going to debate me. Why are there so many morons that say so many dumb things in this town?
I got to say, I hope it's their optimism and they want the best for the program because that's how I am. And even through the Dave Rice years, I was always very optimistic. But there comes a point, especially in the media, and this is what I love about your show, is you have to be objective and you have to look at it and say, you know what, this isn't good. And so I'm hoping it's optimism, but at some point, especially when your job is to kind of hold the public accountable, you have to say, okay, something needs to change here. This isn't going right.
So when you have somebody in the media that says, I'm going to be picking on the same radio station, that's fine. When somebody says, I would rather have Marvin Menzies than Rick Pitino, how can you take somebody like that seriously? A 5-year-old has a higher basketball IQ than that. How do you take people like that seriously? I don't understand
it's hard to, and that's why I just found your show. I mean, you see, I only follow 2 people on Twitter because I just really use it to look up this stuff I discovered. Like 3 weeks ago, there's 5 really interesting people that talk about UNLV basketball on Twitter.
I'm going to give you some people that you should follow. You ready for this? Follow John Sandler. He does the play-by-play for UNLV. They beat Air Force this year, and he called that a huge win. So follow John Sandler. follow Mike Ramala because Mike Ramala said Menzies is doing a really good job, and he's going in the right direction. You can follow Steve Cofield because Steve Cofield went on the air, and I believe Steve said if they win 4 or 5 games in a row, there's going to be 14,000 people in the stands. So follow Steve.
I agree with that if they're playing the caliber of talent that they play.
Which they're not.
Right.
But beating San Jose State.
They were 11-2 last year, and nobody was there because they're playing. What was it, Eastern Washington and Billings, Montana, and things like that.
Better yet, I'll give you one more good follow. You ready? And I like this guy. He's a nice guy. But follow Ray Brewer with the Las Vegas Sun, who said when UNLV outscored Nevada in the second half by 5 and got blown out on their home floor, he said that is a ringing. This is what he said. That is a ringing endorsement from Marvin Menzies that the team didn't quit. So you definitely want to follow Ray too, because if you follow all these guys, you're going to think they're going to make the Final Four this year.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, since I was born and raised here, I'm a big Boston sports fan, and all the stuff I get from them is complete opposite. I mean, even after the Patriots win the Super Bowl, they're like, oh, well, they have problems still, and so it's the complete opposite.
But you can respect that, though.
It's like, there's two opposite ends of the spectrum, but I mean, there needs to be some accountability.
No, but in all seriousness, follow Bernie Fratto.
No, Bernie's a great guy.
Definitely
Bernie's good.
Fratto.
No, he's being serious there.
The problem with the people that Brian just mentioned is that they're creating a false hope almost, a false perception of what's actually going on.
Here's what I think they should do.
And they're misleading the fan base.
Here's what I think we should do. Maybe when those guys, if they're not working anymore, and I don't wish anybody to be fired, but let's just say there were some job openings, I think Austin should replace them. Austin should be a talk show host. That's what I think. Austin, honestly, really good call, my friend. I appreciate your perspective on UNLV. Call again, please.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Austin.
Yes, thanks, Austin. Good call. From a kid who I would imagine he's in his early 20s, right? And
he brought up such a good point about the preseason scheduling. You know, there's an old coach you remember at Louisville a long time ago named Denny Crum. Denny Crum used to put together the toughest preseason schedule because he didn't give a rat's ass about what the final schedule was. He would finish with 11 losses and then make a run in the tournament because his team would be prepared to play in the tournament. And that's all he would say. I don't care what my record is. I just need to get in the tournament.
Imagine if you're on the committee. I mean, obviously UNLV has no chance of making the tournament, but let's just say, well, let's look at their resume. Wow, they beat.
I did just put $2 on them doing the national championship to win $2 million.
Wow, they beat. Hold on, let's just pretend we're the committee for a second, okay? Wow, they beat San Jose State twice this year. They beat them twice. That's whoa. Wyoming. They're like 3-12 in the country. They beat Wyoming twice. They beat Colorado State at home. Boy, that was a nail biter. What a big win against Air Force, according to John Sandler. Wow, their biggest win. Wow, this is an enormous win. They beat Boise State. That's their best win in conference. Boise State's 135th in the country. That's a huge win. Huge win. Well, wait a second. Hold on. I'm reading something. Oh, they lost to Loyola Marymount at home. Oh, they lost to Valpo at home. Oh, wait, they gave up 106 points to Air Force. They lost to Air Force. Ooh. Well, wait a second. Maybe CBI. Let's put him in the CBI.
They lost to Bucknell, too.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, they got blown out.
Indiana State, Bucknell. Let's keep going.
They lost to Bucknell by 30.
Yeah. It was in Hawaii. They were having fun.
It was in Hawaii.
But no, you're 100% right.
Will you give me a frickin' break? Going in the right direction? God.
Well, the end all, Brian, is who's going to replace Marvin Menzies if they get rid of him this year? And
I don't think they are.
That is the biggest. The biggest question is who's going to replace him. And again, if you don't pay somebody like you said, 1.5 plus, you are putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole unless you get very lucky with an assistant coach somewhere.
I don't agree with that Band-Aid on a bullet hole. I do think there are a lot of coaches out there that are affordable. I've named some of them, and. It's a tough spot that Francois is in, but I don't agree with that analogy because I think there are. Look at Coach Hudson. You know, there are people like that out there.
It's a crapshoot, Brian. You're taking a risk, and the point is, if you're going to take a risk, why do it right now? Wait one more year. You heard Lavin say he believes you should get 5 years. I wanted to know what are the circumstances where you don't get 5 years. I would have liked to hear him say that. This may be one of them. I don't know, but I just don't think there's anybody out there that they're even considering or looking.
Then you're going to have 3,000 people in the stands every game.
Yep,
next year.
The real question
is, that's a risk.
If Menzies does get fired, will he file a lawsuit against the university?
No, he's not.
Oh my God!
Racist.
No, he's not going to do that. He's not going to do that. There's no question that was horrible, and to me, that was the biggest faux pas of all things he's done since he's been here. At the timing to do that, it was so self-serving, and it's almost calling all of us in the media and the public morons because we all know what you did it for. That was the part I had the biggest problem with. Is man, even if it did happen and you thought it's better left unsaid.
And honestly, how does just the station that you mentioned, how do workers at that station respond to a statement like that? What are they supposed to say? They can't even say anything.
I'm going to tell you something. I wish I was at that practice.
They are left in it's a total lose-lose situation.
I wish I was at that practice.
When you say something like that.
It's inappropriate to ask him that question, but after a game, but I will give Mark Anderson, who I respect a great deal, we talked on the phone the other day, and I told him this. I said, you do a really good job because you ask the tough questions, and I respected the fact that, first of all, a month ago, he asked Francois if Menzies basically was on the hot seat. I thought that was, really tough for him to do. And then he did a follow-up on the racial tirade thing. He did a story on it. And he texted Menzies, and he got a comment from Menzies on it. All that Menzies said is something that happened 3 years ago, and it's a moot point now. Well, if that's the case, then why did you bring it up? And you made it sound like it happened on social media. I haven't talked to one person that's ever seen anything like that. In fact, it was the opposite. A lot of people, when he was hired, I saw saying, it's good that we hired an African-American coach. It was the opposite. So I think he's coming back next year. I gave out that information the other day or yesterday, and I said, the information I received is that they're in a tough spot with the budget, and he's most likely, from what I heard, going to come back next year. Now, what are we looking at next year? They're probably going to be decent next year. No, there's no 100% guarantee that Houston's coming back next year. I would imagine he probably will, but that's not a guarantee. So what are we looking at? One of the top teams as far as talent in the conference, most likely. I think San Diego State's going to be right there too. So let's just say hypothetically he doesn't get into the NCAA tournament next year, but gets into the NIT. Do you have him come back? Do you give him a contract extension? I don't know how you can do that. He's not recruiting the type of kids that we need to make a push to a Sweet 16 or an Elite 8. So that's what I think is going to happen next year if you bring him back. The fans are not going to come out. Maybe there'll be a top 3 team in the conference. I could see that happening. Maybe an NIT berth. To me, that's not good enough in year 4. Not if you're wearing a UNLV jersey. We're not Cal Poly, okay? This is UNLV basketball. It's not good enough. Look at what Musselman did. Anyway, I'm going to take a deep breath now. We only have about one more minute to go. We didn't even get a chance to talk about the Las Vegas Golden Knights.
And all I'll say, Brian, is that just would really quickly transition over there. For those of you that don't follow hockey real well, be very excited about this move. Mark Stone is one of the best up-and-coming wingers in the league. Granted, he's 28 years old, but he is having the best season of his career right now. He's going to sign a 7 or 8 year deal. This isn't like normally in the trading deadline, Brian, it's a real quick thing, but this is he's going to be here long-term. They're going to pay him a lot. They might lose Carlson next year, but I am telling you, he instantly becomes, in my opinion, the best player on this team. 28 goals.
I agree.
The closest guy to him is Marchessault with 20.
I agree. I wish we had more time to talk about it. The 2 hours goes by fast. Mr. Feldman, thank you so much for taking some time to join us. It is fair to say that the Vegas Golden Knights got stoned. Let's hope it works out. JD, we'll see all you guys tomorrow. Same time, same place. The legend himself, Ken Thompson, coming up next. Thanks for listening to the Vegas Take, everybody. Have a fantastic night.